without bending forward, I think this is myself.
What's our YouTube? So we've got Dale, Sean, Donald here from Zephyr War Games, and we are going to do a quick, well I say quick, we're going to have a little discussion on our own personal Banlist predictions, I suppose. So again, this is our own personal predictions, or what we feel should be banned, unlimited, so on and so forth. So nothing is confirmed, these are just our ideas. So without further ado, we'll start with what we feel needs to be banned in this meta. Our predictions are after the emergency ban list, so we're considering that the emergency ban list has been put into full effect at this point.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we'll start with Sean, who is very prepared with his list. So we'll just start with your banned cards. What cards do you want banned and why?
Okay, that's fair enough. So I've got 3 here. I've got Wavering Eyes, Life Equalizer, and Magical Explosion. The reasons why Wavering Eyes, it's fairly obvious. We're in a game now where people are asking to side out in mid-game, in between rounds. They're asking to side out their Wavering Eyes. If a card is in a game where people have to voluntarily ask, make a gentleman's agreement to side a card out, then you know there is a problem with that card. It's way too powerful, in my opinion. It is way too powerful for this game at the moment. I think we need to ban it for now.
So what you're saying is that people that aren't running Wavering Eyes are asking their opponent to side out Wavering Eyes.
If you're in a mirror match, per se, and you're playing like Pendulums versus Pendulums, they obviously both run Wavering Eyes, don't they? So in between rounds, they both voluntarily ask each other to side out both of their Wavering Eyes. Similar to Necrol's format, how people were asking to side out the Djinns. They would both have a gentleman's agreement to side out their Djinns, and no one was playing Djinns. And then obviously this was a conspiracy about how Patrick Hoban sided out one Djinn and put another one back in. So they both side out both their Wavering Eyes, so it doesn't come to that. Because obviously you use Wavering Eyes, they chain Wavering Eyes, and it's stupid. Then for my second and third, it's obviously degenerate FTKs, OTKs, and that stuff. Life Equalizer facilitates too many OTKs. Then obviously, if we left Magical Explosion, then that would just people would just switch to blasting the ruins instead. So I'd say to stop all these Royal Magical Library, FTK, OTKs, I'd say Life Equalizer and Magical Explosion would hopefully do the trick. Because I'd say, personally, Royal Magical Library isn't per se a problem card, it's the cards you use with it. So that's just my views on cards banned, just through.
Okay. Donald, do you want to
so for my list, I chose Wavering Eyes and Elder Entity Norden. Wavering Eyes is because of the format of Pendulums being dominant, and being Wavering Eyes like a search card, and if you're playing mirror matches or similar decks that use Pendulums, it can obviously scale up into even more ridiculous plays, and where you can just potentially just keep on searching and adding. For Noden, I felt this was a need simply because a lot of games can be decided with just the instant fusion Noden overlay into a rank 4 and then determine the game. As I speak from experience, as one of my opponents just top decked instant fusion, was backed in a corner, played it, Noden, and then went into number 82 and attacked me directly for game.
So you say Noden, any thoughts on instant fusion?
Instant fusion shouldn't be hit simply because there's many other targets for it, and there are many other decks which run instant fusion but not for Noden.
Personally, myself, I'd agree. I don't have any plans to ban instant fusion either, but I was just wanted your thoughts. Really.
Yeah. Dale?
Okay. I don't really have that strong of a ban list, to be honest. I'm too nice with the decks. I don't want to see decks being torn apart by being banned. I think decks should be weakened, but not destroyed like Necros obviously was hit massively.
Over time.
So even then, I don't really. I see the issues that Wavering Eyes brings, and I see the issues that Norden brings as well. So to me, honestly, Norden is probably the only one that I would say justifiably changes a game from such a small stake point, and dropping it to 2 or 1, there's not really any point in doing. It's either ban it or not, or don't touch it at all, because people can still play at 1. It will still have the same effect. You just do more instant uses to use it. Wavering Eyes again. I think the biggest issue with it is the fact that it's a quick play, because obviously they brought out Pendulum Storm in Bosch, which does the same thing. You just don't get as many effects off of Wavering Eyes as you usually do anyway. And obviously with Damage Juggler being banned, there's not really an out to Wavering Eyes. As soon as you activate it, you take the 500 damage, your opponent then searches. So again, I can understand it being hit, but I think banning it might be too extreme. But again, I completely agree with them that that Wavering Eyes and Norden stick out as the more likely to be hit, to be stopped. So yeah, that's kind of my views on it. So we'll go over to Sean's limited cards and what he wants to see limited.
Right.
We are only doing our like top kind of 3. We've kind of tried to keep it compressed to. So if there's anything we've missed off, don't worry. We just didn't see it as a higher priority than the rest.
Okay, firstly would be an emergency teleport. Second is Monarch Stormfort, and third is Laval Chain, coming off the list and being limited on. First and foremost, emergency teleport. It's everyone and their dog's mother in the Yu-Gi-Oh community nowadays can see that card getting hit, because it allows Cosmos to obviously facilitate some stupid OTKs. Obviously, there's the Monarchs now using it with the Quantum Engine. I'd say it's fair enough for that one. Secondly is Monarch Stormfort. Obviously, the Monarch deck nowadays is really strong with that card. I'd say, obviously, due to how quickly they burn through their resources, I'd say 1 is fair enough, because at least they still have access to it. It's still in their toolbox, so to speak, but they need to just be more clever with when they use it or how they use it. And lastly, I've got Laval Chain on the list. Being that way, we've left the Necros era, so to speak. Now, he was only a problem at the time because they were sending the Jin, and then that would make him ready for a ritual summon, a pesky ritual summon, because your opponent would, from that point onwards, be able to special summon any more monsters. From what I can think of, no decks nowadays that can run rank 4s want to send any cards from their deck to their graveyard. No like relevant decks anyway, at least. So I'd say it's fair, because he's not going to make any impact in my opinion.
Okay. Right, for my list, I'm going to start off with Cosmo Tin Can, Heavy Storm, and Solemn Strike. Cosmo Tin Can is, I believe is to be need to be hit in order to slow down Cosmos. The problem I can see with Cosmos is that they have the unique feature where they can just keep on special summoning in the battle phase and attack with each monster and just OTK so easily. I'm not saying to hit Cosmo so hard that as they also can't be played. They just need to be slowed down. So as you'll hear from later in my list, there's going to be some more Cosmo hits. It's only so that I try to slow down Cosmo, but it can still be played. It just needs people to think of other ways of going around it or optimizing it with the list. Second one, Heavy Storm. Simply because now that Dark Hole, Raigeki are out, I am believing in the fact that one day Harpy Feather Duster will come out, but for that to happen, Heavy Storm needs to be back out before Harpy's Feather Duster. So
Lol.
just like
I already have Harpy's Feather Duster.
so just like Dark Hole went to 1, then 2, and in my list, yeah, I'll say it's going to go to 3. Heavy Storm will probably make a return. For the third card, Solemn Strike is just like Solemn, but for less cost. And yes, it has a less sort of use, but considering the way the meta is with special summoning and effects being used a lot more, I can honestly say that Solemn Strike is used a lot more than Solemn Warning. There?
Okay. We'll touch on yours. Yeah, we'll touch on the list together at the end. So my limiteds, as much as I not dislike the deck, I just know they're a handful to deal with. I feel that Shadol's got the worst end of the stick in the previous ban list, and I feel it's only right that they bring back at least one construct, just one, just to give them back. Hitting it from 3 to 0 was really harsh. That I personally feel, and I generally don't like Shadows that much. But I understood them as a nice archetype, and they were quite good. So I would like to see Construct at least brought back to 1, just to see how it goes. Michael, who's also part of Zephyr War Games, has found a way around this and has built his deck with more of a hero engine, not worrying about the light side or anything like that, which still works quite nicely. But obviously their biggest threat was taken out. Whereas, like Donald said, you don't want to eliminate decks, you just want to slow the decks down, and bringing Construct down to 1 would have been a lot nicer than killing it completely. As much as I hate to admit this, my second one is E-Telly as well. Obviously, the biggest reason E-Telly is going to get hit is because of Cosmo. Obviously, I like playing the Quantum deck, and that uses E-Telly and abuses that quite a bit. So I can understand why it will get hit, especially with the reprints. They usually, for some reason, Konami seem to do this. They reprint the cards, make them easier for everyone to get, and then they go, right, we're going to hit it. My third one is it's a bit of fun. For some reason, Konami seem to do this at every ban list. They'll bring back one card that's been banned forever, and it's always a bit of fun to have back. So obviously, Snatch Steal, Rigeki, Trishula, some stay, some go. Quite a lot of people have said about an errated Dark Magician of Chaos. I would quite like to see an errated Chaos Emperor Dragon just for a bit of fun. Again, that's my own personal opinion. It's just a random card that I would chuck back out there just to see how it did.
With an errata or without?
With the errata, it'd have to be with the errata. You can't bring back the normal one.
Okay.
That's kind of my limited. Just a quick touch on the other two guys limited. Obviously, I agree with Sean. Lavarval Chain can easily be brought back. It doesn't affect the meta the way that it used to do. Stormforth I also kind of agree with. It is a slightly painful card because it's a little bit more you can deal with it a little bit more than you can with Gradle Kaiju's, the tribute kind of effect, but it still is quite a painful hit, getting hit with it. But it's kind of, I can see it getting hit. I can kind of agree with that. And also with Donald's Heavy Storm, obviously there have been rumours floating around that Harpy's Feather Duster will come back. I said this first. You've got more chance of Heavy Storm coming back for the pure fact that it's both people are getting hit, not just one. Whether it comes back with the whole pendulum era that we're kind of treading on, I find it hard to see that coming back. But I see where Donald's coming from with the pure fact that if you're going to bring back Spell Destruction, that's going to be the first one you bring back, not Harpy's Feather Duster, just for the fact that you balance it out. What were your other two, Donald, sorry?
My other two was Cosmo Tin Can and Solemn Strike.
Cosmo Tin Can, yeah, I can see it going down to 1. It hasn't been out for long, so you might hit Farm Girl harder than you would Tin Can, but again, either way is possible. Solemn Strike, terrible name. Should have stayed at Solemn Notice. I can see it getting hit, just not as severely down to 1. I feel that Strike is not as effective as Judgment and Warning, just for the pure fact that obviously Judgment and Warning will stop the spell effects, so like the polymerizations, the Red Eyes fusions, the Shadol fusion, stuff like that. Whereas Strike is, they're kind of harder to use. Yes, you'll use them on a full-on pendulum scale summon, that's fine. But then if you're using it to negate an effect and the opponent's monster, well, you wouldn't do this. But if your opponent's monster can't be destroyed by a card effect, it's redundant. So basically what I'm saying is Strike doesn't have as many outs as Notice and Judgment does. So I can see it could get hit, but less of a chance of being hit.
If it's, in my opinion, with Solemn Notice, if it ever was to get here, I'd say probably 2 would be good enough.
Yeah,
Two would be good.
agreed. I don't think it needs. But I mean, obviously OCG they have. Is it Judgment they've got back?
Yeah, 1.
Yeah. So OCG got the Judgment back. I mean that could be kind of a balance to say we're going to take your strikes down to 1, but we'll give you Judgment back at 1. Who knows what Konami want to try and cook up. So yeah.
As for Judgment, I'd say wait until people stop using Ariadne. Like until there's, I'd say Judgment could come back to 1 in the TCG, but not right now. Maybe a little bit in the
well,
future.
I don't see Ariadne as a big player at the moment. It's a great card, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if they bring back like Judgment, I can see if they do that, they would then hit Ariadne to like 1 or 2.
Yeah,
See,
they'd have to
as a compensation.
See, I don't see Ariadne as a direct threat at this moment. Like, see, I tested it into Tellarknights. It's kind of a side card because there's only 3 of it. You need to have it. You're harder to get that on the field. Yes, when it's on the field, it can change the game completely if it stays on the field. I mean, not paying for Solemn Strikes, your Ultimate Provenances, your Curse Seals, anything like that is amazing. But the fact that it's only got 3 of it, I don't think Ariadne will get hit because, I mean, by all means, put it in the comments below what you think and how many decks you've tried Ariadne out in. I just feel that putting Ariadne in, it has to be at 3 to make it worthwhile at this moment in time. And then you're kind of forcing it into a deck. At the moment, it hasn't found its place as a side card or a side archetype in any kind of deck at the moment that's playing meta.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're really iffy about it in your Tellarknights, aren't you?
I mean, I've run it as Tellarknights and it was nice to have, but it was another card like Honest. So when it's mixed with Honest or Effect Veiler, you don't want to have it on the in your monster zone to search out. Yes, you can search out your counter traps like Supernova Alpha and stuff like that, but you'd rather put that in the Pendulum zone and then let your opponent worry about, do I pop it and let him have the counter trap, or do I leave it there thinking that he's got counter traps lined up? Yes, when I tested it out at the locals, when I had it, it went really well. When I didn't have it, it was terrible. So the way I saw it when I built it with my Tellarknights was, at the end of the day, I'm willing to pay for Strike, I'm willing to pay for Notice. If Ariadne's there, great, it's a free truck out. Ultimate Provenance, again, was a nice one to use without having to pay. But again, I would probably still, with Tellarknights, you could pay for the monster effect negation with Ultimate Provenance, not a problem. I did find myself sliding in Curse Seal, the Forbidden ones, obviously stopping out the spells. Again, when I'm siding them in, I'm prepared to pay the cost for it anyway. And like I said, having Ariadne in the zone is like, yes, cool, it's free, but I don't feel it's I'm always going to main Ariadne in all of my decks that I play because all of my decks are going to contain the counter traps. So
Okay.
moving on to the semi-limited, so bringing cards back to 2 or dropping them down to 2s.
Go show.
First and foremost, reinforcement of the army to 2. Tour guide of the underworld to 2. That one's kind of a biased choice since I played BA. And thirdly, artifact moral tact to 2. Right, this one's going to be a bit of a doozy to explain. So Rotar to 2. I'd say in the meta nowadays, there aren't a lot of decks that centered around warrior-specific archetypes like Saturn Knights or something. They're obviously the pendulum decks. They have their Armageddon Knight. Is he a warrior?
Yeah.
Armageddon Knight? Yeah, he is a warrior. So obviously, yeah, they can turbo into their Armageddon Knight a little quicker. Okay, I don't mind. He's only nets you one XYZ monster really, because you just send the Zephyros bounce a monster card. Yeah. So Rota, I'd say wouldn't make anything broken. 2's okay. 2 tour guides. In my opinion, this one, like I said, is the biased choice for me. Being that in Premium Gold, Konami are printing Beatrice and a lot of the BA archetype. That would lead you to believe, hey, they're going to hit Burning Abyss in some way, because they reprint cards. That means they hit. On the contrary, in my opinion, though, on this occasion it will go to the contrary, since they're releasing Beatrice, because why would you hit a deck that you're promoting with new cards? It's just counterintuitive in my eyes, anyway. And lastly, Artifact Moral Tack. The Artifact engine isn't doing a lot, and everyone and their mother is saying, "Oh, Konami, give us 3 Moral Tack." So I thought I'll throw the Artifact players a bone and give them 2 Moral Tack. So it's just me being nice, I guess.
Okay, Donald.
Yeah, as I mentioned previously in my limited list, in my semi-limited list, I would like to see Farm Girl and Dark Destroyer being hit to 2. Only simply because, as I mentioned before, just to slow the deck down. Farm Girl is your searcher. Of course, it doesn't have as much application as Dark Destroyer. Admittedly, Dark Destroyer does see a lot more play, and itself is a formidable card. However, as I feel, it just needs to be slowed down, because you use it to destroy your own monster, which is basically part of their combos, and from then they special summon more and OTK you after that. So those are 2 cards from my semi-limited list. The third one is Vector Pendulum, the Draco Overlord. Now, I'm only saying this as a player's point of view rather than the Konami's business point of view, simply because Vector Pendulum and the Draco Overlord stuff is coming out soon, very soon, and it wouldn't make sense to hit it as they're obviously promoting it, but as a player's point of view, they need to hit it so that was it Draco
Pals.
Yeah, Draco Pals doesn't basically become Pepe as the replacement.
Yeah.
So that's basically really what I say with the semi-limited.
Okay.
Just before, sorry, Dale, I just want to quickly touch on Donald's semi-limits.
We'll touch on after.
Okay, yeah.
Do all the semi-limits and then we'll touch on.
Okay.
So my semi-limiteds, again, they're kind of similar to these guys, and it's also touching on Sean's limit of Stormforth. I don't think Stormforth should be limited, maybe semi-limited, doesn't need to be hit that deep. I also touched on Domain as well, maybe semi-limit that. And then reasoning only for the pure fact that Konami seem to have this thing where they don't like touching archetypes directly. So where, obviously, I agree with Donald that Dark Destroyer and Farm Girl could be dropped down to 2, and maybe even Tin Can just to slow them down. Konami, like they did with Tellers and Rhoda, they kind of seem to drift off and go, let's target the main cards. Let's target the generic cards like E-Tellers, the Reasonings, and stuff like that. Which I personally think is unfair, because not only are you're not, by not weakening the strongest decks out there, you're also weakening the other decks out there that people like playing for fun. So obviously when Rhoda got hit, Michael lost his Samurais, a weakness in his Samurais, UA deck got hit, stuff like that, which I kind of feel like, don't do that, because people still like playing those decks for a bit of fun. Hit the deck direct, just not as brutally as you did with Shadows. I mean, BA have kind of got away with it going throughout. I mean, they've been hit lightly, but I feel they've been hit in the right ways. So they were hit with Sears and Grass slightly dropping down. That's right, because you're not killing the deck. The deck can still be played at a competitive level, and you can find other cards to replace the Sears and the Grass, but not to the extent of making them near enough top meta, unbeatable kind of decks. I feel that's the fair way of hitting decks. Hit them directly, like Donald said, dropping the Farm Girls and Dark Destroyers down to 2.
Tin Can to 1.
Let's be completely honest. Cosmos was still doing really well without Dark Destroyer. Dark Destroyer just took them to a completely new level and made them even better than they were. So, just by slowing them down and putting your Farm Girls to 2, I mean, you could argue and justify and say, alright, well, hit E-Tellies to 2, hit Farm Girls to 2, that kind of balances up. Then the generic decks like Quantums and that are using E-Tellies aren't getting hit so strongly, and Cosmos have been hit directly more. That's how I see it should fairly be played out, but obviously we know not everything's fair in this world. So, again, if I'm looking for it from what I feel Konami will do, I think the generic cards like Reasoning and E-Tellies and Stormforce will be hit. If I look at it at what I want them to do, I feel hitting more direct cards like Domain, Farm Girls and Dark Destroyers is a fairer way of doing it. So that's my semi-limiteds. You wanted to say something on Donald's?
And yours as well now you mentioned Reasoning. So, the Cosmo, Farm Girl and the Dark Destroyer to 2. I didn't actually want to go into a full-on thing about that. I just thought I'd say the funny thing about Cosmo Farm Girl is that some people actually already run him at 2, her at 2. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some people have Predator 2 from 3. I just thought I'd say that. Dark Destroyer, I'd say would be fair at 2 because one Dark Destroyer is enough on the board. 2 Dark Destroyers is going a bit fair. 3, which I've never seen, would be way too much. So I'd say to decrease the probability of their OTKs, I'd say 2 Dark Destroyers would be fair.
I think that would be foolish. Konami would be foolish to ban Dark Destroyer.
Yeah.
But I would understand if they did ban it. I can see it. I can understand it if it's dropped down to 1 or 2. But like Sean said, people are already starting to drop these cards. I mean, Farm Girl being predominantly the main one, but this comes back to what we've been saying. Leave the decks playable. Drop it to 2, still playable. Drop it to 1, still playable. Ban Dark Destroyer, still playable, but not. You've taken so many step forwards, and then you're going to take Cosmos all the way back to when they first came out in Clash of Rebellions. So it's, again, finding the balance between what doesn't kill it. I mean, it's a really nice art type. I love the idea of, I did complain about it previously, but I love the idea of Star Wars and Wizard of Oz coming together. I think that's really good. And I mean, if Cosmojo, the trap card's anything to go by, I love the look that we could be getting a kind of Darth Vader look, and also we've got the Death Star kind of ship supposedly coming out. So there's still stuff there to be admired with Cosmos. Just don't let them. I mean, I could be wrong, but if previous YCSs are anything to go by, it seems that Pepe until they got hit was always going to be battling it out with Cosmo and Monarchs, and it now seems, even though they have been hit, it's still Draco, Pals, Cosmos and Monarchs. So them 3 are still always competing. So it would be nice to have a bit of a change up in there with seeing Shadows come back in there somewhere, or another deck kind of building their way back up. Cleathorts have kind of been castrated right now. But again, in all fairness, they are still kind of playable. I mean, you could bring Scout back up to 2 and let it go without the towers, but
use the God cards. Truly summon.
And one last thing before I move on to your reasoning thing. The way I see it with Cosmos is the strategy, so to speak, of the archetype is to put lots of cards on, lots of damage on board and get the OTK. My problem isn't that they can OTK, it's how often and how easily they do it. If you make it harder to OTK, then I'd say it's fair enough.
Well, I mean, before they got Dark Destroyer, playing against the Cosmos, they would sometimes they could brick really badly, and they would struggle. Which is why I also say, with all these people saying hit the Monarchs like hard, like Idea and stuff like that, I think that's harsh because they brick bad. When they go off, by all means they go off. But when they brick, they are stuffed. And it's really hard to get out of the brick because it just gives your opponent, I mean, if you're bricking in game 2, it gives your opponent more time to fight, to draw into the Mask of Restricts or anything to stop your card. So, again, they did brick before Dark Destroyer, but you don't want that. They're overpowered with Dark Destroyer at 3, so find the common ground. Make it so they don't brick as often, or they don't brick at all, but they don't OTK as often, like Sean said.
And then last but not least, as you said, reasoning to 2. Personally, I'd say no. I wouldn't want that because two decks that I use that card, so I'd be like, no, Konami, and that's about it. Obviously, Infernoids.
Well, no, I again, it's with Resistance that I put reason in there for the pure fact that, like Sean said, again, it's like a Rotor issue. It's gonna hit more than that one deck. It's gonna hit the Infernoids. It's gonna hit Quantums. It's gonna hit Cosmo, and you mainly want to be hitting Cosmo out there.
If they touch reasoning, I'll be so salty.
It's kind of, I mean, Sean might have to suck it up and say hitting it at 2 is a lot better than hitting it to 1.
Yeah.
The chances of it being hit are slim, but it is possible the way Konami works.
Okay, Konami, bargain with me here. If you hit reasoning to 2, put Monster Gate to 2. That's all I'm going to say on that, and that's it. I'm done. Rant over.
So on to Unlimited's, our final section. Sean?
Yeah, last but not least, I have Dark Hole coming to 3. I have Dragon's Ravine, sorry. Why is Dragon Ravine still semi-limited? And Tragodia, because no one plays that card. Tragodia does nothing. My Unlimiteds are going to be really quick explanations. Tragodia does nothing, literally. Dragon's Ravine, I'd say, to push the new Felgrand and the new Blue Eyes. Well, first of all, Blue Eyes that's coming out in Shining Victories, and then the Felgrand that's coming out in the Structure deck. I'd say Dragon Ravine would give them a bone, and promote players to play that deck. So obviously Konami's going to make money. So that even from a business standpoint, they could release that to 3. And then lastly, Dark Hole, because I think it's a really balanced card. I have no complaints with it. 3 really. That's about it.
Funny enough, my Unlimited list is exactly the same. Dark Hole, Dragon's Ravine, Tragodia.
Okay.
Reasons Dark Hole is just like, well, you see it being limited, then semi-limited, then it's about time that you just go and unlimit it. Unless there's some deck out there can run 3 Dark Holes in the Raigeki, then sure, that's going to be a great fun deck. But even in my decks, out of like all 44 of them, even when I had to minimize from 60 cards to 40 cards, Dark Hole was one of the cards I had to take out simply because it's just one of those cards where you would rather go for your combo cards and plays rather than something that just destroys, wipe out. Because half the time you might have the card in your hand and then activate it and then attack the game, but a lot of the times now it's just you just won't have that situation. Personally, Dragon's Ravine, as Sean said, it just doesn't seem to be fair to keep it semi-limited simply because Dragon Rulers are now banned. But if they do bring it back, if they do bring Dragon Balls back, then I can sort of see it staying the same. And Tragodia is, it just hasn't been doing much.
After Dale's done his, I do have some remarks, but that's afterwards, like I said.
Yeah.
Okay, well, again, my Unlimited is kind of like my ban list. There's not anything definitive there. My personal opinion would be nice to see Rhoda back at 3. purely because most of the decks I won are warriors, but on a middle ground, I'd quite happily accept it at 2. Again, you can now argue that Rhoda at 3 would then slightly stop Monarch's bricking, but only by half, because I mean, from personal experience, with your Monarchs, you're either bricking with a hand of all tribute monsters, or you're bricking with a hand of all special summon monsters. So maybe at 2, Rhoda's a fair balance, but it would be nice to see it at 3. That's kind of my list, really. Touching on the other 2 guys, Dark Holes at 3, I think might be overkill. It's a bit, but it's hit and miss. At 3, it's kind of like a cheaper version of Raigeki. For those, I mean, Raigeki is still hard to get hold of. It's still a £10 plus card. I know that's not a lot to most Yu-Gi-Oh players, and it's a generic card that everyone's going to have. But if you're just getting into it, Dark Holes are easy. They're like 50p to £1 each. So having 3 of those is kind of the same as having Raigeki and 2 Dark Holes. I see very few decks that play 2 Dark Holes in a Raigeki, and I then see even fewer decks playing 3 Dark Holes in a Raigeki. Yes, you could have Dark Hole unlimited at 3, not an issue. Whether that many people will play 3 Dark Holes is irrelevant, doesn't really matter. By all means, if your deck builds 3 Dark Holes into it and 1 Raigeki, I'm a little bit scared of your destruction power. But I don't feel it needs to be at 3. I'm just saying it can be at 3. There's no right or wrong answer with Dark Hole. And then the other 2, again, like they said, the Tragonia it doesn't do a lot. It's not a staple card. It's not anything like that. It's the same as Dark Hole. It can be at 3. Whether people will run it at 3, whether it needs to be at 3, doesn't really matter.
No one would care.
I mean, the unlimited kind of area of Yu-Gi-Oh, it's kind of like
whatever cards.
They're kind of like the cards that it doesn't change it doesn't dramatically change the meta by having these cards at 3. They're cards that, if it's a weak archetype and it makes the deck run, you leave it in it. If it's a strong archetype and they're the main cards, so Farm Girl, Star Destroyers, you need to drop them down. There's not a right or wrong answer to say
Plush Fire.
This card needs to be unlimited. Yes, Plush Fire Unlimited at 3. It's the same as the Farm Girl, Star Destroyer. It's only going down. It's not coming up. It's not going to be increased in so. There's more arguments for stuff like Rhoda and Dark Hole saying, look, they're not going to change. Well, Rhoda might, but Dark Holes, they're not going to change the meta. You can put them at 3 if you want to, whatever. Yeah.
Just the remark I wanted to make about only Dragons Ravine. The other 2 I was solid on. I was just wanted to ask Donald, how many Dragon decks do you have that use Dragon Ravine?
None actually.
I was going to say I was expecting you to have at least something. Well, I was going to say if you did have any, would you say it would be more helpful to have it at 3? Or
so what is it with Dragon Ravine stuff? Just say that.
Does Dragoonities?
No,
Yeah.
what does Dragon Ravine do?
Effects.
What's the
I
effect?
can't remember.
You discard 1 card from your hand to graveyard. Either you add a Dragoonity, or you send 1 Dragon type monster from your deck to grave. Now, the reason why I got hit was because of Dragon Rulers, because people just went Dragon's Ravine, discard, and then Ruler, and then just goes from there. That's all it was for. Okay. It was a bit harsh for Dragoonity players, but now that they've banned Rulers, I don't see why it needs to be on the ban list.
Okay, so basically you're saying it with Rulers would have to stay banned to bring back Ravine. So it's one or the other. There's no common ground of bringing half back, half not.
No, do not bring back the Rulers.
That's our ban list discussion. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share the page for us. I know this is a very long discussion, so
it was bound to be.
Happy for anyone that's stuck with us to the end. And hopefully we'll be bringing some competitions or some giveaways as soon as we hit 100 subscribers. I mean, we're on 74 last time I checked, so let's get it to 100 and we'll start getting some prizes sent out. I'm looking at getting some con exclusive mats, packs, stuff like that, so I'm trying to get more stuff like that to be sent out to you guys and all the followers that watch along. again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and Donald.
Happy dealing.